user experience isn't necessarily how easy was this button to find, how was this. An experience is how you feel.
Gotcha.
So if I feel stupid on a website because I can't understand the language, I have had a negative user experience.
Welcome to GASP Sessions. I'm Roisin Buckley from Piquant. Today on GASP Sessions, we are joined by Amy O'Shea. Amy is a front-end web developer at Piquant, and we're going to talk to her about accessibility. Amy, accessibility. Tell me why it's important. What does it even mean?
So accessibility does exactly what it says on the tin. It makes your website available to everybody. Nobody realizes this, but a lot of websites out there are available to maybe 80% of the public. It sounds like a high number, but why would you not want it to be available to that other 20%? Accessibility is just about opening the door to other audiences.
Okay, so accessibility, maybe sometimes when people think of accessibility, they more think of in buildings, you know, and how people can access it, or in services so that people can access it. Talk me through what you mean by accessibility in terms of the digital space.
Yeah. So accessible, you know, as a word, it's for everybody. Everybody can access this information. When it comes specifically to web or to technology, it's can somebody who, you know, isn't able to see, are they going to be able to navigate this website with the tools that are at their disposal? So a lot of devices are going to come with talkover software built into them. So my job is to make sure that these software is talking to the website correctly, because that's all that's happening. It's a conversation between the website and whatever technology is being used. We just need to make sure that those lines of communication are open between them. And there are a lot of ways that this happens. Mostly it's in the back end of the website, and I'm using that term loosely. It's not that you see the changes on the front end, but is that technology, is that connection there between them? Is the language between the two items correct? You're almost a translator between two issues. So is everything reading out to them correctly? Are they able to open things? Are the buttons opening correctly? Are the colors contrasted enough? Now, this is, again, where your relationship with your designer comes in very handy. We need to make sure that, you know, there's enough contrast between your background color and your foreground color. So is text readable? The best example is white text on a black background is the most accessible. So as things start to dull down in the front, they start to dull down in the back, they start to blend together.
So white text on a black background is more accessible than black text on a white background?
They're the same. They hit the same aspect ratio, but black and white working together.
Yeah,
it's when you start looking at the colours in between, their shades become closer and closer.
Okay.
But at a certain point, it becomes unreadable if you have lower vision.
Okay, if you have lower vision. And if you have no vision at all, then the text reading software. So what are they? That's where the alt tags and so on. In talk to me about that.
Yeah. So it's not hard to describe, but I think until you have experienced it yourself, you'll never really get the impact for it. So on this journey of becoming more knowledgeable in accessibility, I used to wear the eye mask and actually use the
No way.
Yeah, I have done it a few times now. It's incredibly frustrating when things are not built correctly.
Okay, so if you have an eye mask on, you're using your phone, for example, and you're scrolling down through a website, I don't know, because you want to find information about a service or book a holiday or whatever. If it's working well, what should happen?
I should be able to jump through headings. I should be able to know that an image is an image and have some idea of what's happening in that image. So this is where your alt text comes in.
Yeah.
You add an image to a website, you add alt text, 3 people in room. That's as much as you need.
Yeah.
You just need an idea of what's going on. I've seen people before add too much alt text.
Right.
The person using the screen reader is almost at the mercy of this alt text. If this thing is 3 paragraphs long, you're kind of waiting for it to end.
So they're listening to it. So as
They're
their
listening
finger
to
is
it.
scrolling around, then a voice is saying, this is a photograph. There's 3 people in the photograph. Now this is a title. The title says best holiday accommodation in Limerick or whatever.
Yep. So it will say heading level 1. this title.
Yeah.
You can then use the option, you can swipe across, go to the next one, heading level 2, this section. Swipe across, heading level 3. You can swipe your way through. So the same as we would browse a web page when we're looking for some specific bit of information, we do it visually. We're looking for those visual cues, bigger text, bolder text, darker text. They are listening auditorily. They are listening out for those cues the way that we are looking for those cues. So you're going across heading 1, read it out. Like, this information is no good to me. Go to the next one. So you're able to skip through things. And that's how it works. They're basically taking what we would usually do visually, making it an auditory experience.
Okay. And that's the making it accessible for people with reduced or no vision. But then there's also isn't there a case around making digital services like websites more accessible through things like the language that you use and how easy it is to move through a website, so that intuitive idea.
So definitely the language that you use. We understand that there are cases, if you are putting together legal documentation, you have to use certain wording in those things that can be inaccessible if someone has a lower reading level. But for the most part, people aren't generating that on the website. You know, they're mostly brochure websites is what we would see online. So in cases like that, you want to use, I'm not saying that you want to dull down
plain English.
But you want to use, you know, sometimes people love to use big words, and I am guilty of it all of the time. We like to use big words, try and sound a little bit smarter, a little bit more impressive. But the truth is, it's not really necessary. Keeping your language as simple as it can be in the context of the sentence is just a nice way to be able to make people feel more relaxed. You know, we talk about user experience. User experience isn't necessarily how easy was this button to find? How was this? An experience is how you feel.
Gotcha.
So if I feel stupid on a website because I can't understand the language, I have had a negative user experience.
Right. Okay. So another things, am I right, that can help with that user experience is short sentences, short paragraphs, bullet points.
People love, especially, you know, I'm going to sound like such an old person, but nowadays, you know, we're used to getting our information in such short, quick bursts that having the information in small, bite-sized, you know, chunks of information is a lot easier to get across. And it's going to stick around a lot longer in someone's brain than a lengthy, wordy paragraph.
Okay, I got it. And so that's all connected in with user experience.
I think it is, So there's negative, there's positive, and there's neutral. And, you know, getting that information quickly, finding what you need. You know, everybody wants things very quickly. And I'm the same. I'm the worst for it. I watch TikTok videos on double speed now. My attention span is completely dead. Outside of reading a book, I can't concentrate on things for too long.
Right.
So I need that quick delivery, that quick information.
To know where you're going. Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of how this is measured, so like how do you assess, is this site accessible? Is that just something that you've kind of come to yourself, or are there tools, or is there like a certificate that says you are now accessible? Or
yes, so it's a combination of all of those things. So in the beginning, I was relying wholly and completely on tools. Now, kind of a first glance at a website, I can see, you know, by the quality of the build, how I think it's going to perform in terms of accessibility. So there are Pally tools, which is an internal tool that you can use. So it will assess a web page. It will tell you this issue, and this one. These are causing it to not be accessible. Then we have third-party companies who have much more robust systems. They're able to go in, scan an entire website, and deliver then a list of accessibility issues.
Okay, cool.
We then have the third type of testing, which is the best, which is companies that will go in and go page by page through your website and manually test. So even with the best automated tools where something is scanning your website, the most you're ever going to get is 54% of the issues.
Right.
I have worked with these softwares before. I find them very helpful for the technical side, but they're not going to give you enough information about your content. So what I was saying earlier about headings are so important to be able to just scan with your ear, you know,
Gotcha.
scan a web page with your ear. These automated tests, they don't check those. But if a person, you know, somebody is going through and testing every page of your website, I did one there recently. We got like 500 issues back. It was insane, the amount of things that I had overlooked or that hadn't, you know, it had never occurred to me that this was an issue because I had been relying on automated tools.
Okay.
So suddenly having a person go through everything, and you learn so much. It's that whole thing of you learn more when you fail than when you pass.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, this sounds dire. And they were like, actually, it's not a bad score. We've seen a lot worse, you know.
And
it's
were they
just
hard
that number.
fixes?
No, you know, relatively easy. It was just small things that we weren't thinking about.
Yeah.
If you go onto a website now and they have a phone number and that phone number isn't clickable, that's inaccessible.
Okay.
So you should make sure every phone number on a website that you can click it. We're mostly getting our information through phones now.
Right, true.
So if the person has no sight at all, trying to copy that phone number on their phone and then open up the phone app on their phone and paste it in is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Whereas with one click, the screen reader will say phone number, blah, 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 click to open. So you can then double tap your screen. It will then just open it automatically. Things like that, just making a phone number clickable on a website is just, it makes a world of difference to a person. It does to me. And I have full range of, you know, eyes and ears and hands. And I still find that such a great thing. So you could have that in your footer. If your website is 30 or 40 pages, that's 30 or 40 issues that are coming from that one inaccessible thing.
Okay, so that's an easy fix.
Yes.
Okay.
So
great. And then as well, so, you know, you mentioned if people are, you know, moving through the website and if they can't access things, obviously that's a negative experience. So when they can, so when you get a report like that with 500 issues and you're able to just move through them and sort them all out, that must feel good.
It does. And it, you know, anytime that you are, I'm a big list person. Yeah. I love a list. I love organizing things. I love structure where possible. Yeah. So being able to almost tick them off my list. Yeah. You know, I'll have an Excel spreadsheet, being able to just knock things off and say, that's done. And being able to do a big chunk of them like that. You know, one issue will appear 30 times because it's on a page that replicates. Being able to just take a chunk of 30 and be like, right, that's removed. That's now 30 pages in the whole entire web universe isn't that many, but for someone it is, you know, and it feels really good.
And this is a relatively new mindset, I'm going to say, in digital projects and web design. And I know it's great that you are so passionate about this, because it means that for every website built by Piquant, then accessibility is one of the like key areas for us. But am I right in saying that like 5 years ago, people just weren't thinking in this way?
No, not even slightly. You'll look at it, they're trying to bring it into legislation. They're like, right, by this time in X amount of years, you know, every website should be fully accessible. But trying to enforce something like that on the internet is just, it's nigh on impossible. Yeah. So I've noticed a lot of government bodies now are kind of cracking down on it. You know, the NDA is contacting them and saying, hey, your website isn't quite there. Yeah. You know, so there are definitely leaps and bounds being made. I know technology has been around for a really long time, but I think COVID happening just kind of made us all reassess things. Suddenly people who were working in an office and, you know, maybe had software that was specifically made for them, you know, if they had any disabilities, they weren't fully able to use these things. Suddenly they're stuck at home with just a laptop that maybe isn't, you know, they're trying to access web pages. Now, I'm not saying that is, but I think the increase in our technology usage based on COVID.
So that like, because it's for somebody who doesn't have any issue accessing a website, it'll just make that website easier. But for somebody who does, it's transformative.
Yeah, absolutely. It will change somebody's life. And it sounds like such a big phrase to use, but it's not. Making somebody's life easier, whose life in general is that bit harder. Yeah. You know, where's the harm in that? It's you're only doing something good at that point. You're not affecting one person to make somebody else's life easier. We're not, you know, taking something away from sighted people to give it to non-sighted people. You're just making sure that everyone can get in on this. And if you want to look at it from a selfish point of view as well, you are expanding your customer base, your audience base. Suddenly you have suddenly you've added 10% more traffic to your website by doing very little, by just making it accessible. You know, you just open the door a little bit for these people who suddenly the door was shut before. Now it's open to them.
And because, you know, like I know I've been working on websites for years and years and years, and like maybe kind of 12, 13 years ago, it was really, I don't know if cool is the right word, but it was all about having websites being different and looking different and having what I would now call as gimmicks, you know, things spin around here, and very maybe design oriented website, but design in a showy way. Whereas I know that websites now, when you start with accessibility, it completely changes the design actually, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, so I do think that there are some considerations you need to make. Yes, it's very cool to add this element in, but is it really accessible? Can it be made in a way that's accessible? And I heard this phrase before, that accessibility isn't the antithesis of design. It's just a new way of working with it. You know, I've seen very little cases where things have had to be completely just removed from a website because they're completely inaccessible. I see it's, you know, I haven't come across a case like it yet. Now I haven't had very many like overly experimental websites, but at the same time, I can't see most elements out there that are going to have that problem, because there is always something that can work within the system.
Because definitely in when you're working through the internet and using digital space, am I right in saying that the priority is functional? You know, it's about you being able to use it, say compared to going into a gallery. Yeah, it's about just being able to I guess access the information. Or is that just me talking about what I use websites for? I'm like, I don't want any.
You know, but I mean, if we look back at, was it Michael Colt, the form follows function?
Yes.
You know, if you start with something accessible, you're probably going to end up with, you know, something along the brochure lines. But there's nothing wrong with that when you're trying to deliver this information. But again, if you want to have something experimental, talk to someone who knows about this stuff. Say, hey, look, I was thinking this. Is it going to, you know, really negatively affect my website? What I would do sometimes, so I know we was talking about tools earlier, but Chrome has its own accessibility tester. You can actually use it through the inspector tools. Anybody at all can do this if they have a computer. So you right click with your mouse, inspect element, and you get those weird boxes at the side that nobody knows what to do with. That's what it is. Up there, you'll see Lighthouse tools. In Lighthouse tools, you can accept, you know, it's a brief overview, but you can click this and it will analyze that web page for accessibility. So if I am casually looking online and I happen to see a page and I'm like, there's no way that's accessible, I will just have a quick look at the inspector tools. Now, it's not going to give me a huge, deep knowledge about it, but it will give me an idea of where it's sitting overall.
I love that's what you do in your downtime. So, Amy, I love that, you know, looking into accessibility and assessing websites, that's just part of your DNA now. And it's something that's a priority for you. So, obviously, if you're building a website from scratch, this is just part of the website and part of the design plan. How about when, like, retrospective, like if you're inheriting a website that already maybe was built maybe 6-7 more years ago and really was all done around that kind of design and had white font on, I don't know, a yellow background or something like that. Is that a harder job to kind of have to go backwards and fix everything?
Absolutely. I mean, if you are building a house, you want to start with a solid foundation. Going back and trying to fix a bad foundation, you're having to move the house in places, you're knocking down walls to get to the foundation. So it's definitely a lot harder. The biggest problem that you will have is color. In those situations, color contrast is going to be the biggest issue. You can make all kinds of changes on a website from a tech point of view that nobody will ever see. You know, nobody's ever going to notice them unless you're using the tools. But color, straight away, you can see the difference. If it is a quite casual website, you know, you can suggest we're going to change to this and this is going to work more. But if you're dealing with a company that has had the same brand colors, the same brand identity for 20 years, suddenly you're running into huge issues. So that's where the trouble comes from. We can deal with the tech things. There is always a fix when it comes to tech. It's the color. That's where you're going to run into colors. So, you know, our designers now are much more aware of it. So they're definitely looking at color combinations now when they're designing things, when they're creating new brand identities. I know Vicky does it for me quite a lot now. She makes sure that everything is tested for color accessibility. Is this going to work? You know, that's well and good now, but 20 years ago, this wasn't happening. So when all of those big brands were created, none of this was, you know. So it's definitely a matter of going back, looking at their brand guidelines. You know, are we going to have to rebrand this? Or can we work within secondary color palettes? Do we find any? And then we'll go through every color in their brand palette and we will try to find something that's going to work with white, something that's going to work with black. Where can you utilize black and white the best? Because they're opposite ends of this spectrum of color. You know, you want to try and introduce that as much as possible.
And is that hard for clients? Do you find, is there a little bit of resistance around accessibility, or are people really excited that you're able to deal with this?
Very excited. People are, you know, they everyone that I've come across at this point is very excited to make their website more accessibility. But again, you are hitting some issues when it comes to color. Sometimes it's not that they don't want to change their color, but they have 10 different channels of communication that they need to go down to get these things approved. Sometimes they're attached to it. There is sentimental value in these things. It has always been this way. Or they could have
like loads of things already built and designed in this.
Exactly, you know, because it's not just a matter of changing your website. Then you're looking at all of their print stuff. You know, how many business cards do they have? How many banners that they have that they're reusing? There are PDFs, then we're going to have to look at those. Headers. It's not just, oh, we're just going to switch out this color. Suddenly it has this whole knock-on effect, especially with something as heavy as brand identity. So you have to handle it very diplomatically. You have to be prepared for pushback as well.
You mentioned PDFs there. That's something that can be accessible or not accessible as well.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about how you make it. So PDF is when you have maybe a report or a document and it's locked in a PDF so that somebody can download it to their desktop. So there are ways for PDFs to be accessible or not accessible.
Oh, absolutely. So PDF accessibility is one of the banes of my existence. And it is just because so many companies have legacy PDFs. You know, some people have policies that they've had for 10 years. They weren't as aware of it. I look at a PDF the same way I look at a web page because a lot of those elements are the same. You can add alt tags to an image on a PDF the exact same as you would on a website. You have heading levels. You know, I don't know if people use them, but in Google Docs, I do it all the time. I highlight my word and I make it a heading 1, then I make it a heading 2. My tables, are they laid out correctly? Do I have a header on my tables? Exactly what happens on my websites has to happen on my PDFs. They are essentially the same. Obviously, when you print one out, it's a whole different thing. The only thing it needs to do is have color contrast, but that still matters. Even in print media, color contrast matters. But I always think of PDFs the same as I do a website.
So if somebody's website is failing in accessibility and they come to Picant and that goes to you, Amy, to fix it up. So there's the color that you deal with, there's the technical side of things that you deal with. And then like an organization could have 40 PDFs. And will each one of those need to be updated?
Not necessarily. So while it might sound like a cop-out, I think people are making moves and strides to try and make their websites more accessible. Sometimes, we're saying 40 PDFs, but sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it's 200 or 300. You know, I've dealt with clients who have way more than that. 50 would be a dream to them to be able to go back and fix. So there is kind of a get out of jail free cards that you can use in this situation. So part of your website accessibility includes having a statement for your website saying, look, we are partially compliant. We have worked through this, this, and this. However, we have historical PDFs.
Right.
So what we are going to do is we're going to strive from everything made from, the 1st of January 2024, moving forward, we're going to work on making everything accessible.
Okay.
Unfortunately, everything backwards isn't going to be. But if you need something specific, if one of our, PDFs, you need it in an accessible format, please reach out to us. We'll try and work with you.
Okay.
It sounds like a cop-out, but it's not. I think people do have an understanding of we're trying.
I think that's fair enough. And so then for all new ones, what you would do is give them some guidance and recommendation and say whoever is designing your annual report, of course, if Peakant is doing it, we'll make sure that the PDF is accessible, but no matter who's doing it, that you design it in a way that meets the accessibility standards.
Yes.
And is that something then that you'll give to the client and say, from here on in, you need to do it this way?
So I wouldn't train them in how to do this. I don't think my knowledge would be extensive enough in it.
Yeah.
In terms of PDFs, I definitely have resources that I can send them. So it starts with a Word document, it ends in a PDF reader, and it's every stage in between. So I have some resources around that. We have done it at Pecan. Our designers all went on a course and they learned about this stuff and how important it was.
Okay,
so I send them that information. While I would love to be able to teach you about this, it's too extensive and it's too important for me to wing it.
And also they might just not have the design skills. So it's something that has to be done professionally. So it's more like from here on in, when you're getting your documents designed professionally, you got to follow this. And if you go to a professional designer, they will look after it.
Yeah. Okay. And that's, if you're going to someone professional, just ask them, hey, have you considered web accessibility?
Yeah.
They may have not, or PDF accessibility, I should say. So definitely ask the question. If you are someone who needs your PDFs made for you, just ask the question. 9 times out of 10, people are going to be aware of it. On that 1%, maybe they're not. And maybe that will give them the boost then to go, okay, you know what, this question's come up a few times. Yeah. Now I need to learn how to do this thing. Can only make the world a better place.
Exactly. So this is something that you've been kind of flying the flag for a number of years. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that people are getting more responsive? Do you feel that there's more awareness around this now?
I do, and I think it has a lot to do with kind of the generation coming up behind me. They're very active in kind of fighting for other people and fighting for what they believe is right. And it's nice to see. So I think that kind of helps with awareness. People are less afraid to say, actually, I can't see this, or I'm struggling with this. I think it's a very hard thing to say. And I don't think 20 years ago, people would have been as comfortable saying, I can't use this website. Right. It's not that I'm stupid. I just can't use it for this reason or that reason. Yeah. Whereas now people are like, hey, I can't use this. So you have done something wrong that I can't use this.
Yeah, instead of taking it on themselves.
Yeah, because that's it. We tend to internalize things, especially older generations. Younger kids now are like, no, if everyone around me can do this and I can't, and I have this one thing wrong with me that they don't, that's where it narrows down to,
Yeah, okay.
So I do think people are more able to say, no, I can't do this. People with, people who aren't able to see properly are able to say, no, this just isn't good enough. Which is nice. Yes.
I've written down one question because we didn't have a lot of time to prepare, sure we didn't.
We did not.
Yeah, we didn't even have time to put on any makeup.
The bare naked ladies.
Bare naked ladies. Yeah, we have our clothes on if you're listening to this, just no makeup. The one question I have written down, and it's not even a full sentence, it's just 2 words with 2 question marks, and it says acting workshop. So I'm just going to ask you that question. Acting workshop?
I like the idea of an acting workshop. I think if you're going to do something like this, you're going to do podcasts and things like that. I think acting, improv, I like the idea of it.
Okay. Am I right in saying that? Because you've kind of to arrive at the position of a front-end developer. You touched on it briefly at the beginning, like your original training is in graphic design. Yeah.
So again, that's a little bit later on in life. If you want to go way back when, it started in childcare.
Oh, really? I did not know that part.
It started in childcare. I used to work in a nursery. I was training in a nursery. And then I went, actually, you know what? I'm not great around this many children for this amount of time.
Yeah.
Then it moved on to business admin. And then I got, qualified in business admin, and I used to work in a finance company, and I did all of that kind of corporate stuff, and I really didn't enjoy it.
Right.
And then moved to Ireland, and I started studying fashion. And I was I grew up in a council estate in London. Fashion was the kind of thing that other people did.
Right.
Rich people did, or middle class people. People like me didn't do it. We just went out and went to work, and then spent our evenings in the pub. That was, and so I was like, no, this feels like a pipe dream. But I was like, you know what? Maybe I do have a dream.
Yeah.
So that was where I kind of got design into me. And then I got into the art college and kind of fell in love with animation. And so during our third year, I think it was, of animation, we had an acting workshop.
Okay.
Yes, so that's where that came from. So we had to learn. It was very awkward at the time. You've got 20 people walking out of the room going, what am I doing? But it was super fun. And part of it was how we communicate without our words. What does our bodies do? How do we shrink into ourselves? It was to get an understanding of how to design your characters, or how to put movement on your characters. But it made me kind of start going, this is quite fun. I enjoy this. I was like, maybe I've got a bit of the acting bug in me.
Okay, right. Because I know one of the things that you do here at Piquant as well is lots of training and working with clients. So maybe that's where the acting workshop gets to
shine.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm definitely a people person.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was when I was younger, not so much, but now I'm definitely
maybe
a people
not
person.
Maybe not a many kiddie person.
I love kids. I think they're great. I just, in that setting, it was just too much for me. I was 17 and, I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be.
Well, I'm very glad that you figured that out. I'm glad for all the kids, but I'm glad for Piquant as well. Okay, Amy, I'm going to say thank you very much. Thanks for explaining about accessibility. I love that that's a passion, and I love that it's a priority here at Piquant. So thanks for explaining it all to me. Listeners, watchers, thanks for being here with us. This is GASP. Do follow us, like us, listen to us, watch us, comment. We're on Spotify and YouTube. So yeah, we'll see you again soon. Thanks.
Thanks.